Hey everyone, we are going to get going on our webinar today. We've got a great topic today, common user errors in ENFOS and how to avoid them. So we are excited to chat on this and get going. It's a fun topic for us. You know, it's not as much user training as some of our topics tend to be, right, for our webinars. Instead, this is, really taking some feedback from the ENFOS team and using that to make you a better user, right? And a better user is going to be someone who's more confident, less error prone, and most importantly, a more efficient ENFOS user. So, before we get started, I had received some notes prior to this webinar from users asking, is this about me? And really the answer is no, right? This is for the ENFOS team to use our platform to help you succeed using ENFOS. All right. So, typical webinar items, most importantly, this is being recorded. It's going to be sent to you after the webinar today. Everybody's in listen only mode. So if you have any questions, use that GoToWebinar panel and type those questions in. We've got a team answering those questions. We'll have a little bit of time at the end, of course. Alexa Russell's going to be helping me out with the questions today. And me, right, I am Torrie Behrens. I am the Director of Customer Success at ENFOS, and I'm going to be leading our webinar today. And I wanted to start off with a health and safety moment, and I wanted to keep it on brand. Here's our agenda, right? Just our common errors. So our health and safety moment. Don't forget to vote, right? In the United States, November 8th is our voting day. Be sure you have a plan to vote. I've already voted in Illinois where I am. Early voting's open. I know, for our Canadians and beyond, the timeline may be different, but of course it's still an important message. So that is my health and safety moment for this webinar. And I'm ready to get into this and start talking about our 11 different don'ts and common user errors and how to best avoid those. All right, first off, this one is a serious item that we want to talk about here. And that's don't share your user account or login information, right? Doing so, sharing that login information would violate ENFOS's security policy, and it's most likely going to violate your company and your client's security policy. It's, bad. It's against policy, bad for auditing, bad for security. So really don't do this, as it's a serious concern for the IT process. So instead, get your own account. Many of our clients have unlimited user accounts. So if you are sharing today, reach out to your admin and get your own account and credentials. ENFOS, we do check this, right? We check if our users are sharing accounts, and we have caught users doing this in the past. So for our admin teams here today, reach out to the ENFOS support if you want to investigate if any of your users are sharing accounts and talk about alternative options. Many of our clients are also moving towards a single sign-on for both internal users and external users, and that very much cuts down on the risk for users sharing accounts because it requires additional kind of login information. So, most importantly, right, number one, don't share your user accounts. And that's going to be the same with ENFOS as any other application or system that you're using. All right, let's keep this going. Don't use the Webapp on the mobile device. And you can see here in my screenshots, my first screenshot here, that's if you go to the ENFOS URL, p.enfos on your mobile phone. And it's going to look something like that, jumbled and hard to read. And it's not optimized for use on your mobile phone, right? And it doesn't look great. use the mobile app instead. So the ENFOS mobile app, it's free. It's available for both the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. And there's a ton of functionality there and more functionality being added to it all the time. And lately there's been a lot of really fantastic improvements. So you can see a screenshot from the mobile app here as my second screenshot, much more clear. There's, great actions that you can do here, like your financial approvals, which I'm showing in my screenshot, reviewing documents, site summary. Your links from your email will automatically open up in your mobile device and redirect to that mobile app. My admin team, you can also manage user accounts and view operation logs on the mobile app. You can download this, you can search ENFOS Inc. Your login is your username and password. And if you use single sign-on to log in with your client, to log in, this does work, right? The mobile app does work for single sign-on now. And there does need to be a little bit more configuration, and ENFOS is already working with many of those clients that are using single sign-on to make sure that's properly configured. So, our mobile app is really awesome. And now that we're starting to finally leave our home offices again, it's great for working within ENFOS. I used it last week when I was sitting at the airport. So I think this is a really great way to, talk about a best practice for the users, right? Use your mobile app. Don't try to force yourself to do things on your mobile phone on the kind of this web app on your phone. Download the mobile app and start using it. All right, let's move into the site module. And a big item that we hear about in our support is when users are accidentally deleting a document folder. And, when I said at the beginning, these don'ts weren't about a specific user, well, this one, users have actually done this one quite a bit. And unfortunately, it's not just one user that's done this. Plenty of people have done this and accidentally deleted a full folder, like my folder here, remediation, that has subfolders and one or many documents within it. And they delete that folder, not realizing that there's many sub items within that folder. My screenshots from the site module in the document section. And if your users have access to add a folder, they also have access to delete that folder. And that would delete all the subfolders below it and documents. Now, ENFOS does give the user a warning, right? We give a confirmation. Are you sure you want to do this? But we found not everyone reads that message. So instead, really, don't delete document folders unless you are really sure of what you're doing. Be sure that none of them are these kind of black folder icons that can open up and have items below it. Admin team, you can turn off the permission to delete folders. Now, with that also prevents them from adding folders. So think about that if you want to update user group permissions. That would, of course, lower the risk of accidentally deleting any primary folders and the subfolders or the documents below. Now, ENFOS does not have an undo action if you do accidentally delete a folder, right? We have no way to undo this, but we do have some other options. Like I said, we talked about the user permissions. We talked about the confirmation that the user has to confirm they want to delete that. But if the document's already deleted and the folder's already deleted, the best thing you can do is contact ENFOS as soon as possible. We can, potentially help recover those documents and get those back over to the admin team for reloading. But, as we talk about common user errors, this one is a big user error, and it has a lot of impact as it, can cause a lot of loss of the document information here. All right, let's keep going. So don't forget to update your site and AOC information. So we're going to stay in that site module or your AOC or project module. And, one of the common user errors that we see is that they don't update the information on this page. And this is your reminder to keep that information updated. And we'll talk about, how it's used and how to keep this information updated. This is going to be a best practice for any system, right? Not just ENFOS. And if you neglect to update your data fields in the ENFOS system, that information is not going to be useful for your reporting, and you're not going to rely on this data to be accurate anymore. And my team, we work with you to do the implementations and the data migration to build this information in. We know it's a lot of work to get that initial data in, so it makes sense to keep it updated over time. So, we want to keep this information up to date. Specifically, I'm talking about this site summary section that I'm showing here. We also have a similar section for the project summary or the AOC summary. Latitude and longitude data we see maybe isn't up to date, but maybe it was never loaded properly in the first place. User contacts, including our financial contacts, right, which are out of our site module. But we know a lot of people have changed jobs and roles lately, and keeping this contact information up to date is really important. It can be used in your reporting, which we're going to talk about a little later. The notes, regulators, or additional information, right? These are the sections a bit lower on the page where the users can add in their project notes or their site information that's going on at that AOC and keep an up-to-date log as to what's going on. Additional information, we've got the fields and groups, and we have a whole webinar where we talk about additional information or AIF, as I have listed here. And ENFOS has built a lot of functionality in that section. So, not only keeping your existing additional information up to date and current, but also reviewing the functionality that's already there. It's already included in your subscription, and can you add more to that section that's going to have, more information here in your site and project information. And then there's, other fields and sections within this module that you can keep up to date, of course. Now, how do you get this up to date, right? All users with an edit button, like I'm showing here, they can update this information. So, be sure that your users and your team members know clicking that edit button allows them to update this information. ENFOS automatically records, and you can see that here in the middle of my page, automatically records when this information was last updated. So we can see in my screenshot, Roger updated this information in June. And we also report out on this information, right? So a great report, if you're wondering, is my data staying up to date? You can run this report in the site information or AOC information report and sort it by your last modified by date. And the oldest information, maybe that data is still current, addresses aren't changing, right? And maybe that's a good opportunity for you to check and make sure that information is staying up to date. Now, as we talk about that report, the site information or the AOC information report, you can also export that data, right? And that's going to export it in Excel, where you can update information in bulk, save it, and then import the data in bulk, right? That's really how we are doing our data migration for our implementation group. And that's not just for the site summary or the project summary. That's going to be all of these different sections that I've listed here, right? There's imports for our contacts, our notes, our regulators, additional information, right? All of these different sections here, we can update in bulk, or the users can edit that information, project or site specific. Now I've got one other comment here on the contacts, and that's an administrative tool. Most users don't have access to this tool, but under our admin tools, we've got this updates section. And our admins might know that's where things like the roll forward is. But there's a bulk update tool, and in bulk, you can remove contacts, you could replace contacts, or you can add contacts. So that's really great if you're seeing old contacts that maybe have changed companies or changed roles or have retired, and you want to remove that person from their contacts in bulk. That's a great way to do that. Now you can of course do that here in the site and project information, but that can also be done for open purchase orders. So you can imagine if you've got a project manager that is retired, they had originally approved that purchase order and their name's still on it. That bulk tool can update the contact on that open purchase order. So then any new, email alerts or invoices that are created against that goes to the updated project manager. So admins, that's under the admin module and tools and updates to update that in bulk. For the rest of my users, the big message here is keep this information up to date. It's going to be, really helpful to rely on the data as well as use the information for reporting that we're going to talk about in just a bit. All right, so we kind of had some admin topics and we talked about our site and AOC module, and we're going to move into the financial module. A user error that we see sometimes, do not ignore financials that are stuck in error or awaiting status, right? And on my screen, I've got a screenshot of some purchase orders that are stuck in an error status. And you can see my examples are from March, right? So these have been there for quite a while. And what we don't want to do is ignore that these are stuck, right? There are simple ways to fix these up, and we want to make sure that all of the process and the transactions are running smoothly, so the financials get set up correctly, and of course, everyone gets paid. So you're going to see these statuses on things like your plans, your purchase orders, or your invoices, depending on what ENFOS is sending over to your general ledger. ENFOS did some research, and we found that sometimes these errored financials are just sitting and they're not getting the attention that they need. And in a typical workflow process, ENFOS is sending over this information, and your general ledger like SAP or Oracle is sending ENFOS back an immediate response. And that's when this error status might come up. And of course, our admins then work hard to get those corrected. Sometimes they need to work with multiple team members. And those normally get cleared up really fast and really easily. An example of something that might be in an error status might be something like a code, like a company code is incorrect at that project. So the code gets corrected, it gets resubmitted, and everything runs smoothly. But what happens is sometimes these sit really long, right? Like these from March. And if you are seeing any of your financials stuck in an error status or a waiting status, be sure to speak up and talk to your administrators and make sure that they know about this and that they're receiving, or excuse me, they're giving the proper attention to fix up these errors. In a normal process, like I said, the admins, they're receiving an email alert from ENFOS, and maybe also even from their general ledger system, letting them know that there is an error. They also, have reports and can check on these in bulk. And the ENFOS team does review this for our clients. And, we're always making sure that these are staying up to date. So instead, for the admins, if you see an error, we know that you've been trained onto how to fix this up. But if there is ever a question, reach out to that ENFOS team. We're going to help you fix this. We're always happy to work with our client's IT side too, right? Because sometimes it's not always clear what the error is. And sometimes it takes both groups to work together to solve that error. And for the admin team, again, if you're not getting those email alerts, let us know and we can review the settings. For our admin team, we also have a dashboard, which gives a summary. That's under our administrative module as well. But that dashboard is going to show you a summary from a certain timeline of all your transfers and really clearly show in red or green the status of each of those transfers. So admin team, make sure you're cleaning these up. User group, if you see something stuck in error or waiting, be sure to speak up and make sure those are getting the attention they need. And maybe they were created at the wrong project or don't need to be corrected. Make sure then that they're getting deleted or moved or whatever they need to be, so they're no longer stuck here and kind of showing up in reports. All right, so these next items, as we get to number 6 and beyond, these next items are really building off of one another. And I think that they can, you can learn from each one as we move on through the rest of the webinar. And I find all of them kind of slightly related, but they are unique topics. Our first one, and man, I love this. This is how I use ENFOS. Don't forget, you can use bulk import tools. And I say here for financial importing, but a few slides ago, we were talking about the site information. That can be bulk imported. Really across the board in ENFOS, there are tools for bulk importing and bulk exporting. I'm going to stick with finance here as my best practice and my common user error, because we'll hear this from some of the users, right? When we talk to you and you'll say, adding my invoices each month takes a lot of time. And our response is, well, do you import your data in bulk? And a lot of times the answer is no. So, this is a way to make you more efficient and a better ENFOS user. Now, some of our clients have said, yes, we have done bulk importing and we've found it's easier for us to add them in the screen. That's awesome. I think, there are these options and you're going to find what works best for you. My job here is to make sure you're aware of what's available in the system and see if it fits for you and your company. So the first off, we're going to really focus here on proposals and invoices. And I have an entire webinar on the new tab page in ENFOS. And it's called Consultant Super Users, Importing Proposals and Invoices, right? And the whole webinar talks about how to do this, what our best practices are to get started, how to test it, how to know what your data needs to be to import the data in bulk. This means you can import invoices for multiple AOCs at the same time. I am going to give a warning. This doing the importing, it takes the checks that are out, and it takes those checks outside of ENFOS and it puts it into Excel. And we know Excel has its own challenges, things like date formats and leading zeros. ENFOS requires that these imports have to be perfect to work, right? And we publish those formats. Of course, this makes sense. They have to match the format. If we're expecting the invoice date, we need that in the right date format. You can't put in ABC. That's going to fail. So just be sure if you're going to take on bulk importing, to really understand what the format is and how to fix up those errors and move forward on it. It does have different challenges than using a drop-down menu in the screen. Now, the users, you still have a chance to add your backup documents if you're bulk importing. And you can submit those, right? So you submit those through the regular workflow where they go on to your project manager, who then can approve and reject. And of course, from there, continue the workflow just as you're used to in ENFOS. So that's bulk importing for proposals and invoices. Let's talk about the next step after that. Maybe you are bulk importing already. What's the next step? Some of our consultants have direct exports from their own internal cost estimating systems. Those exports from their internal systems match the ENFOS import format. So instead of building a cost estimate in your system and then keying in that data into ENFOS, right? Manual work and kind of duplicating work. Some of our consultant companies have built an export from their system that matches the ENFOS format, right? Kind of an example I'm showing here. So then those users, they are creating their transactions in their internal system. They're clicking their export action, and their export is the ENFOS import format, which then they can import into ENFOS really with one click. I mean, that's as efficient as it can be. Now, of course, this is going to really be dependent on your consultant company and what you want to do to, build your own internal process. Some of the consultant companies may not even have internal estimating tools, right, that are available. But this would be something that consultant companies would take on. ENFOS does publish our formats, and obviously we know our formats very well. If your consultant company is interested in building this export to match the ENFOS import format and you need some support on that, let us know. We know what to do here. We know what our consultant companies have done on their side to build this, and we can give you some tips there. The ones that do this, chose to invest in kind of matching these formats, and it is really, really efficient. All right, so lots of possibilities with the importing, right? You can think about how much time you're spending each month to import your proposals or to add your proposals and imports, your proposals and invoices, and if importing makes sense, to maybe make that a little faster. All right, so as we talk about efficiencies, let's talk about how users really, you should not be creating these offline trackers and spreadsheets to duplicate data that's already in ENFOS, right? And this is falling under don't duplicate your work. ENFOS is automatically getting updated with information all of the time, right? We talked about a few slides ago how we're receiving updates from the general ledger system. So my advice is don't, waste your time and don't duplicate your time creating spreadsheets and shadow systems to track and manage information that's already in ENFOS. So instead, I'm going to say use the tools in the system and the reports to do this for you. And I've got some tips as to, what I would suggest as good options for, replacing these offline trackers and spreadsheets. My favorite, it's actually in the middle of our page here, advanced search. And I'm going to talk more about this, but that's on-demand, easy reporting all on one page, right? I want to know my invoices paid this month, all on one page. That's in your advanced search, which is in your left panel. I like the finance plans balance screen, right? So in your planning module, there's a balance page for those users that have access. And that's giving you an up-to-date summary as your balance. That's going to include your spend, your open work order amount, your available to commit into other work orders. It's a great summary at the project level as to what your balance is at that moment. We're going to talk more on this one, but report scheduler. This is to schedule recurring reports to be emailed directly to you, right? So let's keep going with that. Invoices paid this month. Schedule that report, and all of a sudden you are getting an output directly from ENFOS as to what was paid that month. No reason to track that separately or duplicate your work. I also like the cost summary by WBS report. That's a great report to know your open purchase order balance, right? And that actually will show that information by whatever work breakdown structure or WBS you're using to have that information in ENFOS. I know in that report too, the report criteria allows you to really kind of filter it down. All right, the webinar we did before this one, we talked about OData, BI, and analytics. And that's so much about building reports with the ENFOS raw data that are updated daily. And that's in Power BI. Now, that one actually is in ENFOS, or excuse me, that one is outside of ENFOS, but it's using ENFOS's data. And it's using that data every single day. So it is up to date and it's kind of matching the ENFOS system. Many of our clients have started with their OData subscriptions with ENFOS and are building out those report-ready charts and graphs. The BI webinar that we did previously this year, George Burnett gave so many fabulous examples of report outputs that clients are using there, and it's really great. Now, what I'm showing here on my screenshot, this one's really great for my employee users who have access to bigger branches, greater branches in the hierarchy. You can see in my blue hierarchy bar, I'm looking at all of Illinois and the sites and projects below that. And I'm on the financial planning lifecycle page. And this lifecycle page, when you're at a level higher than your project, it's showing you roll-up information. So I'm no longer looking at my reserve for a single project. I'm looking at my reserve for the entire state of Illinois. And all I had to do was go to my hierarchy level and navigate to this page. And I'm seeing roll-ups. I can see this on all of my financial modules, right? I can toggle over to my invoice page and I'm going to see a roll-up of all my invoices that match where I am in the hierarchy. So, really, I don't need to log into ENFOS and go project by project and then have a separate Excel spreadsheet where I'm typing in my data to track the information that's in ENFOS in a separate spreadsheet. I can use ENFOS, use these tools in the system to have all of this data and save myself and save my team time so that I'm not duplicating information or work. All right, so in slide 7, we talked quite a bit about reporting. And slide 8, don't be intimidated by reporting. When we chat with users who've been using the system for a while, they tell us they want to learn more about reporting. And I always say reporting is no risk. You cannot break anything in this reporting module. You can't delete anything in this module. You cannot do anything wrong here, right? Just give it a try. Just log in, go to your reporting module and start running some reports. Even our support team, right? The ENFOS team, when we get reporting questions, the first thing that they do is they log in, they test it, and they try it out. So here are my tips to really start using the ENFOS reporting module more. Start small. Start at a single project, probably a project or an AOC that you know really well. And if you are only running that report at that AOC, you're going to see the data that is there and you're going to be familiar with what the columns and what the reports are really showing you. And that gets really important as you get into the financials, right? There's a lot of columns in many of those financial reports. Frequently, you're seeing ENFOS's terminology, which may be slightly different than your terminology. For example, ENFOS uses the word budget based off of a snapshot, whereas you might use the word budget slightly different, right? If you're running this report at a single AOC, you're going to know what ENFOS is using because you're going to be familiar with those terms. Back to advanced search. I feel like I don't have a webinar where I don't talk about advanced search. It's really a great place here. This advanced search is reporting, but it's all on one page. You don't need to click add. You don't have to save anything. The column output is really limited. Advanced search is the way to start when you've got reporting questions and a query you're trying to solve. I mentioned, all of our different reports. Try running different reports. We've got 90 standard reports based off of your user access, right? And try running different reports. Use the report customization and the report criteria to cut down on the output. Maybe you just want to see your invoices from this year. You don't want to see every invoice from all time. We've got to save as favorite, right? So if you run a report and you like that and you think this is a good one, save it as a favorite. It goes into your reports, which, in ENFOS is listed as My Reports, and it makes it easy for you to run again and easy for you to keep track of those reports that you liked. We've got a lot of webinars on reporting, and those are all available in the new tab page. One of the more recent webinars for reporting was report suggestions for project managers, right? Specifically for the project manager role, what reports is ENFOS suggesting? So run that webinar. We talk all about the steps and the great reports that we've got in the system and why our clients like these specific reports. So it's a great way to get your information. Again, start small and then roll up for a larger portfolio and just kind of run a few, see if you like them. All right, we're going to keep going here for reporting. Don't forget to schedule your reports and don't rerun these reports each month. Schedule them to get emailed to you automatically. So my screenshots on this page, this is showing you the some of the setup for the scheduling. This is a lot about duplicate work as well. Make ENFOS send you these reports and save yourself a few clicks. You don't have to log in and run a report that you like. Have ENFOS send it to you in your email and you've got it. We do have training specifically on how to schedule these reports. I know that's in the consultant super users. It's in our project manager report, webinar that I just spoke about. But, here's kind of the quick review of it. In our report criteria for many of the reports, we've got what I'm showing here is a relative date range. And this drop-down menu, I have selected as last month. And what's nice about this is I can select this and ENFOS is automatically going to update this every single month. So let's stick with the same example. I want to know my invoices paid last month. So I set my criteria as last month and I save it. I save this report, my invoice report, as a favorite. And then I go to the scheduler submodule under reporting. And I set up a scheduled report and I have it sent to me, maybe the first Friday of every month. And what that report does is it sends me all of my paid invoices from the previous month. That report comes from ENFOS automatically. Your paid invoices report, that's added as an attachment. And then you've got your output without having to log in and check that data, saving you some duplicate work. Now, the criteria I'm showing here with the relative date range, it's listed in a lot of reports, so you don't have to update it. The customization is going to limit your output. The first step is always saving your report as a favorite. And once you save it as a favorite, you can add one or many favorited reports to a schedule. So let's say you want your paid invoices by country. I want to know my paid invoices in the United States, and I want to know my paid invoices in Canada and have them both in local currency. Well, I save each one as a favorite. I schedule a report. I add both of those favorited reports in my schedule. And now my scheduled report that gets emailed to me automatically has two tabs in that report, one for US and one for Canada. So I've built my workbook with all of this ENFOS data. It gets sent to me every month, and I've got it right there ready for me in my inbox. You define that frequency and that output, and then the users, they're getting it automatically. All right. We've got a few general topics here at the end, and then we'll have some time for some questions. One of the best practices and something that a common user error that we hear about is they forget that you have your own user preferences or your own user settings. Now, these are in your own user account. So if you go to your initials and then down to preferences, you've got all these different sections, and you can really define how ENFOS works for you, right? You can say, what are you going to get your email alerts on? What do you want to see on your action items when you log in? Or, under miscellaneous, we have things like the date format, really important for our international users, as ENFOS kind of defaults to the US date format. You can change all of these user preferences. Many times the users have them set during go live training, and then they don't touch them, and they forget that they have control over what their ENFOS system shows and looks like. I have a whole webinar on this topic, right? On this user preference section. And I've listed the title here, 8 Pro Tips to Maximize the Use of the ENFOS User Preference Configuration. That's a mouthful. But it is there, and we talk about each of the fields and what they control and how you can set them up. So a common user error, not using your own user preferences to see the system how you want to see it. I'm going to add one note. I used that date format as an example, just a reminder to my admin team that does not control the date format that we use to send data back and forth with our transfers, right? That is not going to change the date format for our files that we send to SAP or Oracle, et cetera. Those are set in the specification. This is more about the data we are seeing in ENFOS and our report output from ENFOS. So remember, look at your own user preferences, make sure they are set up how you want to see them. Number 11, last one. So, this one again is more than just ENFOS, right? This is going to help you everywhere. And I cannot tell you how many times I am writing a note, maybe to Sandeep or to George or Alexa and asking them for some help. And I'm writing my note and I kind of get halfway through and I figure it out on my own. Or I get that one other idea and I, all of a sudden this idea comes into my head and I'm able to solve it. So I know this happens to you guys too. I'm sure many of you can to say the same thing. And this is going to be true outside of ENFOS. Anytime you're writing a support request, make sure you've got the full detail in there. What our support team and our team really did help me, build this here. But what our support team wants to see, they want to see the user name that's having the issue, the node path they're at, what action they were doing when they encountered the error or the question, what their expectation was for the outcome. And then any backup document you can provide, right? We love screenshots and videos. If you've got an import file, maybe you're an admin and you're working in a test system instead of the production system, any information. And that's going to help us. It's going to help us so many ways. It's going to help us really fully create the ticket. It's going to help us understand what your question is. So we're going to be able to answer it, hopefully, in a single reply. And that reply is not, can you send us more detail, please? But that reply is, hey, thank you. We've totally understand your question. We're able to reproduce it. And here's our best practice solution. That's the goal here. So, we get so many great emails, so many great suggestions, and we, love it when the support emails come in and they're really clear. So that's my final tip to all of the ENFOS users. Write really good support questions to your admins and to the ENFOS support team. It helps us all out. All right, with that, we are going to move into the questions and answers. Be sure to use the chat panel and we will talk through any questions. You know, I'm aware here that we've got about 15 minutes. I do want to say if there's anything I missed, right? Something that you think is a common user error and you want to see it listed or in a next webinar or some area that we can improve on or provide additional user training, send it over to us. We want to know, you know, you guys are the users, you're in the system day to day. We want to hear how we can help support you. All right, Alexa, I am going to pass over to you and we'll talk through some of the questions.
Sure, I was just about to type a response to one, so we can start with that one. Regarding bulk invoice uploading that you mentioned, is that explained in the finance module invoice training or somewhere else?
Yeah, let's go back. I've got the list there and the slides get emailed out to everyone who registered for the webinar also. Okay, so all of these, you know, I clicked too quick here. There we go. All of these other webinars that I listed that I kind of referenced, if you open a new tab in ENFOS, they're going to be listed under those training videos. And the most recent webinars are at the bottom of that page. This importing, it's called Consultant Super Users, importing proposals and invoices. And what any of these webinars do is they take you to the ENFOS YouTube page, where then you can see all of the listings as well. Now, on the ENFOS new tab page, that lists the webinars that me and my team host, these expert series webinars, as well as ones that we don't see in ENFOS. And those are the other ENFOS webinars from the marketing group that Roger Well and his team leads. And those are listed on the ENFOS YouTube page too. So there's a ton of really great content there.
All right, another one for you then. A consultant user asking about a transaction that they have that's in an error status and asking what action they need to take to get that out of the error status.
Yeah, so there we go, number 5. There might, right, any financial in the error status. What you should do is contact your PM or your admin that you're working with. If you're not sure who that is, send over in the chat maybe a private message or something. The company, the company that you're working for, the client, right? And the ENFOS support team can help you out with that. But send them over a note and they can help you move that along to the next step. I do know our team has been working with the admins from all of our clients to note anything that's kind of stuck in this error status recently. So hopefully your admin team is already aware of it and they're on it. But if they're not, it's always kind of good to have another reminder to make sure nothing falls through the cracks.
We've had a couple more questions, Torrie, about where specifically in ENFOS we can find the past webinars and videos. I think it might be helpful if we show that in ENFOS.
All right, give me a moment here and show. Sure, let me pull this over. And logged out. Alexa, you can see my ENFOS demo screen, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So, you know, like we talked about in our user preferences, when you log in, you might see something different than what I see. But to see those webinars, go ahead and click this green Open a New Tab page. And here we are. Here are the tutorial videos. And as I scroll down, there's a lot. So they're all listed in here. You can click on any of these, and it's going to open those up into YouTube. And that's where you can watch them. And as I mentioned, there'll be this expert series that me and my team host, as well as other ENFOS webinars that have been recorded. All right, what do we think? Anything else or any other items we should review right now? Alexa, I know sometimes we need to reply back to the group after, after the webinar. And if any of those questions, need additional information that I can't share on my screen during this webinar, we can always follow up with the users afterwards.
For sure. I will ask this one. I think this is a great question just about what we might be doing in the future for webinars. This person said, thanks for a very informative session. Will there be any future webinars specifically on tips and tricks to increase efficiencies using the data module?
Oh, great question. I like that suggestion. So for these expert series webinars, we seem to be doing about 3 a year, maybe 3 to 4 a year. And we're always, building more content here. And I love the user suggestions on things like the data module, maybe the ENFOS mobile app, right? Other suggestions and modules you want to see with more content and more training, put that into the chat. We definitely take that into consideration when planning out our webinars.
I think that's probably it for questions right now to share with the group. There are a couple that I think we should follow up with those people via email after the call.
All right, great. Hey, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining today. We hope this was valuable for you and gave you some of our tips for these common errors that we see, how to avoid them, how to make yourself a better ENFOS user. We appreciate everyone's time. Have a good day.